Welcome to tonight's episode of Crypto City. Hard to believe that it's April already. We are flying through this season and flying through this year. We only have a few weeks left, and we actually had a cancellation on one of the weeks. It's actually a reschedule to next season, so we do have 1 week open. So if you know anyone you think would be a good fit to come on, April 27th is open. So just hit me up and I will make it happen. So tonight we're going to have AussieGuy join us to talk a little bit about AltCon, which is a convention that he just held for the memorial of AltSpace. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. There's a couple things I just want to touch on first. I wanted to mention that if you are invested in crypto, I know that the market has been kind of all over the place. It went really far down. It's bouncing back up. It's down. It's up. That is very normal for anyone who, if you're not familiar, just hold tight. It's going to level out again. This is what it does. It goes up and down. If you are not very familiar with investing in general, I suggest you talk to a financial advisor. There are some people in the virtual reality worlds that are familiar and very good with crypto and investing, but you need to do your own research and most financial advisors nowadays are more well versed on it than they used to be. About a year and a half ago, you really couldn't get anyone to help you with crypto. They were like, you're on your own. I'm not going to go down that road. But with ETFs coming forward and a lot of other changes in the regulations, the more and more financial advisors will talk to you about that. So definitely, seek help and advice if you need it. And, in addition to that, AI. We talk about AI almost every week, and we talk about all the amazing things that are happening in it. We have the training series that we're doing this season, which the fourth and final installment will be happening in 2 weeks. And, I've had a lot of people mention to me, after the show and also just, on the side that they're doing more and more in AI. They're using it for work. They're developing things for fun. They're having a great time using AI for miscellaneous projects. There is no right or wrong way to use it. Just use it. Get familiar with it. It can help you and it can make life more efficient. It can also help you, in your business life. It can help you do fun projects around the house. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, you can tell AI, whether it's ChatGPT or one of the other ones, if you're using Gemini, whoever it is, you can go to it and say, this is the project I'm doing at home. I want to build a patio. And this is the size of my land. What do I need to do? It will start prompting you with questions for you to answer, and it will put together an entire game plan for you and give you rough costs and everything depending on where you live. It can get that meticulous with the answers. So, if you're too timid to kind of use it for work, but you want to get used to it and familiarize yourself, use it for something fun. Do not be afraid of AI. It can be your friend. At the same time, if you are using it for business or you're using it for important documents, make sure you fact check. Make sure you proofread. Make sure you go through what it is you've created and make sure it has everything that you need. I just was speaking to someone the other day who made an entire contract based off of all the information that they had. And they put it in there and put the contract together and didn't read it, because they said, it's just using the information I had. Well, it kind of made some assumptions based on the information that they had and included those into the contract. Now both parties have signed and it's a legal document. So make sure you're doing your homework too. Okay. So with that said, I want to jump into tonight's show, and I'd like you to please help me welcome to the stage AussieGuy. Aussie, please join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be back.
So definitely, those are the key words. Have you back on the show. We love having members of the community come back and join us. And, you've been on 2 other times, I believe, and now this is your 3rd. And, you've done a lot in VR over the years. But for those who are maybe not familiar, please, introduce yourself and your role in the VR community and what your journey has looked like over the years.
Well, I started out originally in AltSpace at the end of 2020. I think I joined December 3rd. And by the end of the month, I created a website That originally was to promote MREs that I had sourced, because that was kind of the trending thing. And just for anyone who's not aware, MREs were basically interactables where we could equip hats, items to our hands. And that, for what it was worth at the time, was, I guess, added an additional perk to being inside a world or a certain event. So they were kind of hot, I guess you could say. Then I wanted to learn how to build worlds, and I tried looking at the original documentation, and I just found that was just too overwhelming, and I never touched Unity before. And I approached a few people, and they were trying to, well, they offered to teach me for money, and I thought the price they were kind of offering was unreasonable, so I kind of went the hard way and started learning it on my own, mostly, and I started documenting what I was learning on a website. At the time was more for a personal blog. And because the MREs I was promoting on my website, that kind of drove traffic to the website. And while I was blogging, adding articles, guides, that kind of also grew. So there was a demand for people who were also wanting to know how to build worlds. And that's pretty much how it started. I sort of became, I chose a very simple website name, AussieGuy92.com. And so people were starting to recognize me, approach me, and that kind of what put me out there originally. And it's just been a lovely journey since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were definitely a huge resource when we were in AltSpace, and it was great because even if you weren't building worlds, your website was very helpful for people to understand terminology and to learn all these different things, like you said, the MREs, and there were a lot of different kits and world terminology for the items and the assets in the world that you were giving people a user-friendly manual for, basically. And it was great because it made you a resource in a relatively unknown realm for people. People were coming into AltSpace fast and furious during COVID, and people were coming in and like, this is great, this is fun. Oh, this isn't just a game. People are doing things in here, and the more they were learning, the more they needed answers. And it was great to have your website. It was a lot of fun, learning things through it. And you also, you ended up becoming a mentor for a lot of the people who did become builders and creators over in AltSpace. So that was really cool too.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights. I look back and I've spoken to people like Kip, and who's built this wonderful world, by the way, and maintains it for you. And he's always told me when he first started building, he'll go to my website, and that was where he started, was my website. Now I give Kip all the credit because he's learned a lot on his own since, but it's nice to be part of his journey, and so many people who start out building, and some people, they stop building, but I think a lot of people start going into Unity with a bit of confidence because they had step-by-step guides and instructions, and they were doing something that they otherwise probably would have touched in their life if it wasn't for such a resource. And then that kind of progressed, because then you had people that went to my website, they were picking up skills, and now they teach other people. And honestly, people like Kip, they teach better than I did or ever would. So more power to the users of Metaverse.
It takes a village.
True.
So you recently did a project called AltCom, but before we talk about that, we're going to talk a little bit about AltSpace. Many people who are, are in our audience and who watch this on YouTube have been to AltSpace and were part of our community. And you're not familiar with what I have coming up here, but I have a little montage I've put together. But before we go through the video, because I want not really the video, but the slides, I want to ask you, what did AltSpace mean to you personally and, emotionally?
At the time, I was 28, And it was the middle of COVID, and I felt really socially isolated because here in Australia we were having lockdowns, and that was a bit of a rough time. And I just remember my first few nights where I would go have a shower, wear some nice clothes, put on my best cologne, and I'll put my headset on, come in, and I felt like I was somewhere else, like I'd been transported across the ocean into the US, because it was mostly US users I was interacting with. And I kind of just, and it really just opened up my eyes to the world. I mean, you can talk about what it's like to be in virtual worlds and exploring and doing goofy things, and that's all well and good. But for me, at that point in time, I was sort of, at 28, I was still becoming an adult in many ways. And being around older people, I felt like I've matured, or at least I would hope so. But
don't get old on us.
it really broadened my horizons about the world, people, learning about different types of people, different types of personalities. And even if I was to take this headset off and walk away, don't worry, I'm not going to do that right now. But if I was to leave VR, I'll take away all these things that I've learned about myself, other people, and I'll just apply it to my daily life. So it was sort of like kind of like going to another high school, and definitely AltSpace provided that for me. I felt like the time I was in AltSpace, I kind of really defined my own personality as an adult, and that would shape me for the rest of my life in terms of my beliefs, views, opinions, and besides that, just meeting people, having conversations that maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable having them in real life or in person, and from that, it got me out of my shell a lot of times, and sometimes it had the opposite effect. But generally speaking, it's been a blessing in my life, and yeah, it's always good to put my headset back on and come back in, because most of the time now I spend it in 2D.
So I love that it had such influence on you, and, you know, it affected you in so many different ways. You know, it made you become a teacher and a mentor. It also gave you a platform to make friends and learn about cultures and everything. So I love that. So we're going to just show a couple of slides here with some imagery from AltSpace, you know, some flashbacks for if Blue will slide through for us. But first, we got a whole page of images of AussieGuy with people. So there's obviously Blue and myself, and then we've got Artsy and Nara. That's so cool. And then we have moving forward, we have DJ Marcus with Blue and I up at the top there, and then Loudfire on the bottom. So here's a nice little montage of our team. Loudfire, and for those of you who see Loudfire in the crowd periodically, that is her signature dress. And then we got Kip. There's Kip in VR, and then we've got Anadi, and we got Metaday over in VR, and then for those of you, in AltSpace, and for those of you who were in AltSpace, you might remember the astronaut suits that you could put on and float around from planet to planet. That was pretty cool. That's actually Loudfire in the second one there. That's so funny. And then let's see, I think we got a few more here. Let's go through to, we've got Wine Chick Kim celebrating her birthday. And, you know, there were a lot of different groups that were in AltSpace, kind of like we have over here in VR chat, different groups. But there were a lot of community events. I mean, you've got Bigger, Better, Meta. They did lots of stuff over there. They actually did some stuff here when we first jumped back over. So it was pretty cool. And then we actually had so many events that were on the boards at night. We used to go on and it would tell you the time and what events were happening during that time. And you could jump right to the events from there. And, you know, there were nightclubs, there were street parties, there was all types of different things. There were world openings. The top one there, Matty Boy used to build worlds. That one I think was actually Eagle Lord's Party House. Then we had, you know, the nightclubs that we went to. There were just so many different things happening happening at any given time. And the community came out in droves. I mean, there were movies and videos that were filmed in there that you couldn't even get in the worlds. It was so busy. It was crazy. And then I think, we dug a little bit into the archives and we found one of your favorite pictures, which was a group of us get together. And, there's me and Blue and Aussie and Ryu and Brenton and Sparrow and Sherwin, all of us back in the homies headquarters. That's like how close people were. We called it homies headquarters. And that picture you've actually carried forward in a lot of your builds. There's actually another picture that I found that I think is on the next slide. And this one might make you giggle a little bit because this one's from in the Wayback Machine. And this is Crypto City. When we first started out, that is our original world. It was me and Pixel Addict. He was my co-host for the whole first season. He is a tremendous AI creator, and he graced us with his presence for the first season. And he was my co-host, and we brought people on to talk to. And then one more picture that I think is a little bit hilarious too. The next slide, we actually have Retro Blue. This is Blue Moon back in the day.
And then I can see Eagle Lord as well.
Yes. Yep. And a few other people. But when I came across this picture and I was like, that is like, it reminded me of Legos. Like that is old AltSpace. That's how long Blue's been around. She's an OG of the first kind. So I thought those pictures were great. And I really just wanted to share them real quick for the people who didn't get to be part of AltSpace to see just how much fun we had. And one thing that you might notice in almost all those pictures is how many people were together at all times. You could go on and do your own thing, but it was rare. Most of the time you were surrounded by large groups of people and there was a lot of love in those worlds. So I think that was the last one. And now we're going to talk a little bit about AltCon because you created AltCon. And let's talk about the vision and what inspired you to create it and kind of, what your goal was in bringing the community together for this.
Well, originally I wanted to do it the year prior. I was kind of overwhelmed doing it for the previous year because I hosted the 2024 US election. I did like a election night coverage, and I actually used the same building.
Okay.
I was working up until obviously November. Then it sort of became December, and then by the time Christmas rolls around, I just didn't have enough time to put it all together. So I ended up kind of just putting it out the back of my mind for the next year. Then it got to sort of middle of last year and I was thinking about how I would go about doing it and what would be involved. And I kind of just went for it. Started, unfortunately, I was going to use the world that I had used prior for the election night coverage, but I actually had lost my 6 terabyte hard drive a few months prior. So I had
that's heartbreaking.
Optimize the world and get it to a certain level before I could even start putting booths in. And then I had to re-optimize it again and again and again to get the world size down. So it was a lot of work. And I, unfortunately, in the process of building this world, I kind of fried my own graphics cards. So that's why I'm in Quest at the moment, because I don't have a graphics card working.
Okay.
So I kind of took a bit of a sacrifice putting this world together, but it was totally worth it in my eyes. And so I started reaching out to a few people. I started floating the idea around to a few trusted people. They thought it was a good idea. And I just started putting a spreadsheet together. Serene Liminal was really helpful. She suggested I put a spreadsheet together because at the time I was sort of just doing it all in my head, and I thought, no, I need to be more organized with it. And I was trying to find as many people I could fit into this world, and it gets to a point where you have to think about optimization, space, and the fact that you have to work with the 100 megs for Quest. So that kind of limited what I wanted to do. But I I feel like I did a good job of the world. I'm very proud of it.
was
It's probably one of my
beautiful.
best worlds.
Hmm.
And
It was amazing.
and and my I guess for me, the reason why I wanted to put this event together, it, for me personally, I miss AltSpace. I miss the entire community, everything about it. And while I'm building this world, I have this scene from Shawshank Redemption. It's a scene in that movie where they're on the roof, and I think they're putting tar down on the roof. And Andy, the main character, he talks to one of the guards, and he makes a deal to get everyone 3 bottles of beer each. And Morgan Freeman narrates at the end, but basically Andy sits in the corner and he's watching everyone drinking beer. He doesn't want any of the beer. He's just enjoying everyone. Just watching everyone enjoy the beer, having sunlight on their backs, feeling normal again. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted everyone who was there to feel like they were in AltSpace, even just for a little while. Mm-hmm. And so that scene was going through my head while I'm building, and that's what I wanted to recreate for people. I wanted to make them feel like they were home. Mm-hmm. And that's all I wanted from that event. I didn't want any money. I took no money from anyone for it. I just did it just for a few hours of happiness for everyone. Mm-hmm. And
well, you said you started reaching out to people. Like the initial response, did you get a lot of people from space that were like, "Oh, this is great! Like, I want to be part of it. I want to be in this," because there was a lot of people there. It was good.
I think in the couple of hours, 285 people turned up on opening night, and I think by the end of the next night, 1,000 people had visited the world, which is great.
That's amazing.
Obviously, that gives exposure to everyone. And that's obviously the reason why, or the other reason why I put it together, because I feel like we're a little bit isolated in our little pocket of VRC. And I feel like groups should put themselves out there a little bit more. And it's okay to have non-alt spaces come in and join the events and be part of our communities. I think that's a healthy thing moving forward, because we can't live in the past completely.
Absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful memories that you carry forward with you. And we definitely were past spreading the word about it. And there were a lot of people who came through who had never been to AltSpace, and they were just like, "Oh, this is interesting." And some of the worlds they saw, I think one of the best part about it was when you saw a world you recognized and you were with somebody who hadn't been there, you're like, "Oh my God, this world," like Sherry Mohawk and the doppelgang is like, "Oh my God, they used to all dress as each other and walk around." Like you'd remember those things and you'd start talking about it as if it was like so natural and like it was yesterday. And it's been it's been 3 years. So it was amazing to see how you fell right back into what that norm was back then.
Yeah, it was a great event. I'm thankful for everyone who turned up, because it would have been, nothing unless people rocked up. I think when you work on a world for so long that you kind of become desensitized to the actual world. Mm-hmm. And while I was preparing the world, I would have to try and pretend I hadn't seen it before, and then I walk through and I look at the colors, the booths, and what felt natural, what didn't feel quite right, and I was making changes. And one of the things I wanted to focus on was just using color. I wanted it to be like a carnival where everywhere you look, you see different colors, and they all just blend into one, into one. Not even as one color, but you just have a great variation of colors, and that invokes emotions and happiness and all that. A little bit of psychology going on there, which I don't even completely understand myself, but I knew I wanted it to be expressive and with colors and organized in the way where people can walk through and they're not seeing too much at once, and it's and it's a delicate balance to get. It's many hundreds of hours of work, and it's quite a well to do by yourself. It's usually when you see these VR chat conventions, you will have a team of people working on it. But I kind of worked mostly solo. I had a few people help me by reaching out to certain people. Atessa was one of them. I'm very grateful that she helped me. Nice. And but you asked, was there much interest at the beginning? And it was kind of mixed. I was a little bit surprised. Originally, I wanted people to host their own events inside the world during the whole week. But when I asked around, no one really seemed like they wanted to do something, and or they were busy or they were doing something else. So, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because the video players stopped working, I think maybe that week or the week prior. So it was kind of, it would have been too difficult to try and navigate that issue that week. So it turned out to be a good thing in the end.
I also love that when, you can see Crypto City up there right now, but one of the things that you had done was you said, if you're doing something right now in VR chat that was not in AltSpace, feel free to include that, and so for all of the AltSpace members that, have moved forward and have actually created some additional things like AltSpace, Crypto City is there, but also we have our other couple things that we're doing at the bottom as well, just to, show that there's been growth. And I love that you were open to that. And, I saw that there were a few other people who had their original platforms, their original, shows, talk shows or radio shows or whatever it was. And then you saw a little bit of whatever else they're doing. And I thought that was really nice. So it was cool. And there was a lot of people gathering outside too. When we first landed in, you did it very smart because you knew a lot of people were coming and you didn't make us all fall into one little spot and crash the world. We landed in random spots out in the field. But what was fun about that was you're like, oh, there's so-and-so. And you ran over to see them. And that was a lot of fun. It was almost like seeing your old, schoolyard play friends out you would run to go see them. And I loved that. I thought it was great. Very cool. So, moving forward, let's talk a little bit about platform loss in general, because, AltSpace meant a lot to us and AltSpace gave us a lot of really cool memories. But at the same time, AltSpace has passed on. So we're now moving on and doing other things. But there are some people who never came back after AltSpace. They basically just said, hey, you know what? I can't deal with this. It's too emotional. We've talked about, tonight, but we've also talked about in the past how for a lot of people, AltSpace was literally their family. And AltSpace was, what they did every single day because most people came in COVID. And, during COVID, you couldn't go out. So you woke up in the morning and whether you took a shower, ate breakfast, whatever, and then you were like, what time am I getting on and what's happening tonight? Like everyone was excited to get on almost every single night. It was packed. Some people during the day too, but mostly every single night it was just flooded. So it was a huge shift and change. And now we are seeing many other apps have been closing down or limiting their access to different things and just taking a different turn. And Meta is dictating a lot of how this is rolling out. But for people who are pigeonholed into just one platform, this is going to be a very tough time for them. So, from a technical standpoint, how do you adapt to the platform loss? When you own, like if you're in Horizon, the best thing that they did before they took it away from everyone was to introduce the mesh and the tri-mesh and all of that. So people who hadn't used Unity because they were only building in primitive shapes got the opportunity to have a little taste of it before they lost everything because this uses Unity. Most of the other platforms are using Unity. So without that knowledge, they would have been completely hung. But now they have a little taste of it. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great loss. I definitely feel for those people who are on those platforms right now. I've always pretty much stuck to VR chat since AltSpace, and I'm grateful that I kind of weighed up the platforms that were out there at the time, and I thought VR chat was the most economic one that would survive because it's been around for I can't even remember the year, maybe at least since 2026, maybe even not 2026, sorry, 2016, 2014. It's been around for quite a while, and that's I never felt like going anywhere else. I have been to Horizons, I have been to Rec Room, and they were kind of cool in their own way. I just my heart goes out to those people, and I kind of reflect on the loss from AltSpace, and I kind of just want to go there on the night just so that I can be supportive, but I don't know if I should or could, or it was the loss. I think being around the sadness would just, I don't know, trigger that
memories.
That was I had been reflecting on the last night leading up to this interview, and I was grateful that I was able to go into a space which you were there, Blue was there, and quite a few other people of our friends were there too, and that's basically where we went out. The world froze, and we just logged out, and we came over here, and we just got on with it. And I think I don't think this will be the last time that platforms will close. I mean, change, you can't control change. Change is just going to happen whether or not it's out of our control. But but I don't know if the answer is diversifying where you go, if you're joining different platforms or sticking to one. I couldn't tell you what the answer is to that.
Well, I will say one thing. It's been 3 years and you're still obviously like visibly moved when you think about the loss of AltSpace. So that right there, and there are a lot of people who feel the same way. So that right there shows just how emotionally invested a lot of people were in that platform. And I think, everyone was sad to see it go, but I think that there was a very big emotional upheaval that happened from, the loss of that. And 3 years later, you still being, saying I might be triggered from that, it speaks volumes. So I do feel the people who were 100% Horizon or Rec Room or any of them, and even, okay, so Supernatural, for anyone who doesn't know, is a workout program, a fitness program. And, obviously not everyone is going there for socialization. But if you are heavily into your fitness routine, whether it's for your health or just for fitness because you like working out, and that's part of your day, and now that's not going to be something that you can incorporate, that's hard. Like, you're losing part of your identity. And it's funny because we're avatars, but we are still us inside here. So I feel like that is a big piece of it. I want to ask you a little technical thing though about before we move on. When we started AltSpace, there were, and I use AltSpace when we started for a reason, because during COVID, that's what drove a ton of people into AltSpace. There were already people in AltSpace for years prior to that, but COVID pretty much drove people in. And when we were in there were a handful of well-known world builders. You had Matty Boy, you had Artsy, you had Nera, you had like some people who were well known for it. And then there were a few others that were doing it. But pretty quickly, I'd say within the first year or so, people were like, maybe I can do this too. And we saw this huge influx of, people starting to build worlds, and AltSpace was super user friendly. I mean, you didn't just walk in there and know how to do everything, but if you had any interest, with a little bit of effort, you could learn how to do something. And so it grew. I mean, I remember Poe was creating worlds and turning them out, and people were repurposing them, going in and learning how to change the colors and the textures. Like, there were a lot of things you could do. And so we saw this huge spike in world builders. when AltSpace closed, because of the nature of the skill set with Unity and everything, people who jumped over to VR chat continued with what they knew, and they just had to make some modifications and learn some new programs to continue building over here in VR chat. They had to optimize, they had to change some of the SDKs and stuff, but it continued that trend of world building, and people who were a little savvy wanted to do it and jumped in, and they learned too. I personally feel in the last year or so, we've seen that trend kind of taper off a bit, and there's less people coming in and being like, oh, this is great, I want to build in VR, and jumping in and starting to build. More people are coming in and showcasing their skills. More people are coming in and hosting events, bringing their businesses in and hiring people to build worlds for them. Would you agree with that trend? And what do you think that, if you do, then what do you think that the reasoning for that is?
It's something I actually think about quite a bit. In my mind, I call it VR economics. So in AltSpace, you could set up a world. You could start with just a plane, and you could use objects, primitive shapes. You could also use other people's kits, and you could even upload your own kits if you had a little bit of Unity knowledge. It didn't take much, and people were able to sort of customize their own worlds. They were able to brand them, put posters up. If you wanted a picture frame, for example, you could go to the AltSpace website, upload a picture, then you'll spawn in a frame, then you'll go edit and attach the photo that you wanted, and that will be your image. The bar has been raised since, because now in VR chat, if you want to build a world, you have to open up Unity, or you have to work with someone. So, you work with Kip. But just to use your world, for example, if you wanted to, you have a lovely hall where you have all your guests out the back. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to add my photo, you have to get Kip to do it. Mm-hmm. And you have to get the photo, and he will have to upload it, and then you have to upload it for Android and PC, and it takes a lot of time. But if this was in AltSpace, I think you got Stover to he built a world for you, and then you would just edit out the frames, or
and change it on your own,
or use the projector. So now, if you want to host an event and have slides. I mean, there's a few ways you can do it, but ultimately you have to stream in. You have to use OBS. You have to do this. You have to do that, all just to have an event like this. But in AltSpace, the barrier to host such an event was much lower. You could use a pre-made space. You could customize it to some degree. You could use kits, and I think people seeing other people do events would encourage people to start their own, and people would teach people how to build with using kits. But now we don't have that functionality. It's a lot harder and more and extra steps, and people just aren't willing to invest the time in learning, and sometimes they're just not able to learn because they're not as tech savvy. So now you have to know someone who's tech savvy or be tech savvy to do anything in here, and that's something I'm hoping will change in the future. Mm-hmm. And obviously people can reuse spaces to some degree, but people want to have a space of their own. They want to customize it. They want their logo on there. They want their branding, and I think generally that's just why people just don't seem to want to do events nearly as often anymore, and it's quite sad.
I think, like, for example, we'll use Kip as an example since you mentioned him. He's built so many beautiful worlds, and his worlds tend to run really smooth, and people know you can have a lot of people in and you're still got a smooth platform. So he's now uploading like templated worlds to Gumroad, and people are going and buying them and then hiring him to customize them for them. And then, I think that one of the other things that might be a bit of a technology issue, and we're going to talk a little bit about emerging technology and trends right now, but is that, in, like you mentioned, in AltSpace, AltSpace, the world was the world. If you use the same world as everyone else, you added your things to it. Nothing was ever going to cause it to be too heavy. And then you come over here and you've got, some people with human avatars. Some people come in and they're a giant dinosaur. Some people come in with, huge wingspan, and it causes things to crash if there's too much of that going on. We were very uniform over there, and it made the world smooth. Now you need to find somebody who can optimize a world good enough that you can hold an event with a lot of people in it. And that requires another level of skill set that some people just don't have the time to put into. But let's talk a little bit about like the emerging technology right now. So you mentioned Unity, and we've got Blender, and, people are going in and they're starting from scratch, or they're repurposing different things. We see VR being used as both an entertainment and a business. People are doing everything in here. People like G Deuce who come in here, and she does her financial services both in the real world and in here, and runs them together concurrently. It's great. So what other technologies are you aware of, or that do you think will be coming more readily available to VR creators? And also, what would you like to see made available to us?
Well, number one is AI by far. That's something that I've even seen change since coming over here. I'll use ChatGPT, for example, to write up a script. When I click this cube, make me teleport somewhere, and then it would print the code, and it would tell me how to set it up, and I just put it in. And before AI, that I would have had to go somewhere on GitHub and read how to put together the script, or use Udon Graph, and so the barrier for creating complex worlds that have extended functionality, that bar of entry has dropped. Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting, when just a moment ago we were talking about how difficult it's more challenging for people to do events. So you think, well, what's going on here? But I have noticed there's been some beautiful worlds that have come out in the last year. Probably the number one hot world at the moment is that fish world. Mm-hmm. And I heard I'm not going to speculate, but maybe AI was used for some of it, for ideas, mm-hmm. or just even piecing together some of the code, or maybe the creators are absolute genius. I don't know, but I definitely use AI for mm-hmm. different things, and I'm always asking questions about Unity and scripting, and what would be the best way to do this functionality, and so AI is definitely number one. I don't know about sort of other technologies off the top of my head, because I'm just so obsessed with AI. I kind of mm-hmm. feel like that's, I guess, generating art as well through AI. But then you mm-hmm. also have the AI being integrated into applications like Unity. I think with the latest Unity version, I think you can do more AI stuff with it built in. Mm-hmm. Which will eventually become mainstream for VR chat builders in the future, and in a couple updates maybe. So I'm definitely excited about that.
I would really love to see the ability to have more NPCs in worlds. That were like, if in that fish world, there's actually, the NPCs that are all in there, that when you come close to them, they give you information and stuff like that. Some of them are actually quite comical, but I think it would be really cool. Like, everybody's building these absolutely gorgeous worlds. People are really talented and really skilled. It would be really fun if you had like some of the beautiful houses that people have, or the beautiful apartment complexes, things like that. If you had, a doorman at a beautiful apartment complex or hotel, or if when you were inside, you had, the people come and they want to walk your dog, or people like, just different people to interact with that you're not actually going to talk to as two avatars sitting there talking, but people that you could interact with within the worlds. That would be really fun if we could make that more commonplace. I feel like that's in games, but not so much in just regular worlds. I think that would actually be really cool because I feel like we had that a bit in AltSpace. We used to have, Stovert made a lot of NPCs in AltSpace and things like that. So I feel like that would actually be kind of cool.
And then adding the benefit of adding AI to that, so you could be interacting with these in real time, having a conversation.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could put two AI bots here in the future, and they could run your podcast for you, maybe.
That might happen.
I mean, I wouldn't want you to be out of. Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I'll sit on the couch and it can interview me. That's hilarious. So just in wrapping this up, let me ask you advice for creatives who might be feeling a little bit disheartened right now with platform closing and stuff. What would you say to the creatives who are feeling discouraged, or do you think that there's a way that is it, come in, enjoy it, take the risk and just do it? Or is it, come in and do it, but also do this to protect yourself? Because, we all know at the end of the day, or if you don't know, you should know by now, that the platforms really own everything, no matter what you create. So you don't really, you own it by using it, but tomorrow they shut the lights off, it's gone. So you should at least be backing up all your files and the things that you physically create. But, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely backing up all your work is number one, and losing my 6 terabyte hard drive, I've kind of lost a few wells that I really enjoyed working on, and now they're gone unless I can get this hard drive fixed, and I don't know if I ever will. So whatever you do, always back up your work and always back up your backups. I can't stress that enough. Just so that you can take your ideas, your pictures, your memories, anything that you create and upload, you can hopefully be able to upload them to another platform. And even if you don't have even if you have to retexture, redo the shaders, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit more work to bring something over from, saying, from AltSpace that was using URP, and this VR Chats is using SRP. So most things I was able to just change the shader to the standard, and it worked okay, but sometimes it's a little bit more problematic. I think if you're in that situation where you've been in Horizon and you're looking for a place to go next, I would definitely look at the history of the platform. I'd advocate for VR Chat. You can just look at its history, what they're doing. In the last year, they've implemented more of a creator economy, where people can spend money, and I think it's 50% goes towards the creator, and the other 50 goes towards the platform for transaction fees and just to pay the bills, essentially. And I think that's a very positive thing that VR Chat's doing. They're also working on implementing event features. We got a nice little event calendar. So I feel like they're working at a good pace to make the platform better, and they're moving at a reasonable speed. They're not trying to do things too much at once. A great example is that they've added a few different menu locations. I think they added the event tab somewhere, and it takes time for people to learn how to access those things. And once enough users have learned and experienced knowing how to navigate to the events, they can do something else and build on to that feature. So I personally, VR Chat's a great place, but there are other platforms, and it's really whatever your heart is really set on. I mean, I guess the lesson would be to just enjoy what you have while you still have it.
Those are wise words.
I mean, that's all you can really do, and keep in touch with people, connect, add each other on social media, and just have a way to stay connected outside of the VR platform that you're on.
Absolutely.
And that way you can always regroup, and sometimes it might not even be in VR, it might be another game. You might create an Xbox party or on PlayStation, add each other's friends and play those sorts of games. It's really about the people and the connection. It's not really about the actual platform itself to some extent.
Very true. Very true. And I would agree with you with that. And I do agree also, it was funny you were just saying about they added things to the menu and it takes people a while to figure it out. Every time I go into the menu, I learned something new. Luke, who is not here right now, but is usually here, he showed me a couple things last week after our show. And I was like, how long have I been in VR and had no idea you could do these things? Because we come in, we do what we do. You don't sit there and play around in the menu. You don't go, hey, what does this do? What does this do? You come in because you've got an event or you're meeting your friends or you're going to do things. And if you really sat down and took some time, there are some really cool things that you can do in VR chat that I bet a lot of people don't even realize. So it is pretty interesting. But yeah, so I hope that we will see something from you before the next AltCon. But I also do hope we'll have another AltCon down the road, whether it's next year or at the 5-year. We appreciate all the work that you put into it. And thank you for coming on tonight to talk to us about, your journey and everything that was, important to you in VR and how you've actually, paid homage to it and also, created some new stuff with it. Appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure being here tonight.
Thank you. And next week, we will be having Angel the artist come on. And she's going to talk about a new show that she's going to be doing with her mother, which is pretty interesting because it's nice to see VR chat going off to the families. And we want to take a moment now to thank our sponsors who help us keep this show going and help us, really promote community in all the things that they are doing, as well as supporting our show. So we've got DJ Marcus, who runs our camera system that he built and, helps us put the videos together every week for YouTube. We've got Kip, who we also mentioned, built this world. Rich from Hume AI and Lux VR, who's helping people learn how to do e-commerce marketing. And we have Cybershay VR, who just does a little bit of absolutely everything in VR and has been one of our supporters and been to almost every show. We've got Tinker Love 1980 from Beauty of Tink, who's helping people with their events in VR. She's holding events in VR to bring community together, and she does stuff outside in IRL as well. And we have Fuchsia from the Virtual Fitness Group, helping people get fit, enjoy spending time together while they're working out in FitXR and Supernatural until it's gone, and Les Mills, and a few other things that she works on with different people. And she also has an online group in Instagram and Facebook where people can get together and say, hey, I'm going to jump in and work out if you're interested. So for those of you who want to work out but aren't, there's no excuse. Connect with Fuchsia. She'll help you. And Ice Cold Stacks from Ice House Casino and Lounge, and also from BYOB events with Ty Sky. They are doing different events here in VR chat. They Stacks came over from Horizon, and she's a perfect example of one door closes and another one opens, and she's over here now putting together an amazing new Ice House Lounge coming to us soon. And Ty Sky and her do streaming events. They do comedy events, music events, all different types of things in here to bring people together. In fact, we have the Hip Hop Prom, which is going to be on April 17th. So for any of you who were in AltSpace, you remember we had proms over there. This is going to be very much like that. Kip built the world, and it's absolutely beautiful. If you're interested in coming to that, we would love to see you. You do not have to be an AltSpace person. Everyone is welcome. It's free to the community because we really wanted to bring the community together. If you're interested in sponsoring, there are still some opportunities available. Please let us know and we'll connect you. And thank you all for being here tonight and for being part of Crypto City. We have 4 weeks left in this season, and we will see you next Monday night. Thank you all. Yay. Thank you, Aussie. That was great.